I never, in a million years, imagined I would fall for my best friend's younger sister. If someone had suggested that possibility to me a few months ago, I would have erupted into a fit of laughter, rolling my eyes and waving off the idea as absurd. Yet here I am, sitting in my old, battered sedan, parked right in front of her house, my fingers clenching the steering wheel hard enough to make my knuckles turn white. I can't stop the tremor in my hands. My heart thuds painfully in my chest, and I'm teetering on the edge of slamming the car into gear and driving away, never to look back. But some invisible pull keeps me rooted here. My name is Emily Parker. I'm 27, living in Brooklyn, and I work as a graphic designer at a small but lively marketing agency. My life has always been neatly arranged. I have a decent job, good friends, and a comfortable, if slightly cramped, apartment. No major dramas, no catastrophic secrets. Everything is tidy, except for one explosive change that I never saw coming. The reason for all my current angst is simple, but also indescribably complicated. I'm hopelessly in love with Claire Evans, the younger sister of Olivia Evans, who has been my best friend since college. Olivia and I met at NYU during orientation. We became close almost instantly. She's the kind of person who brightens the room with her energy. You notice her loud laugh before you notice anyone else in the crowd. Over the years, we've grown inseparable. We share inside jokes, embarrassing drunken stories, and favorite pizza spots in Brooklyn. We also share a deep sense of loyalty, always having each other's back through breakups, existential crises, and everything else that comes with your 20s in New York City. Claire, on the other hand, was always just Liv's kid sister in my eyes. She's 4 years younger than us, enough of a gap that when Olivia and I were partying at college house shows, Claire was finishing high school. My earliest memories of her are from brief visits or video calls Olivia would have with her family. Claire had braces for a while, and bright blonde hair always pulled back in a messy ponytail, face framed by bangs that never seemed to cooperate. She was sweet, sure, but also the baby sister, off limits to me in every conceivable way. She simply wasn't on my radar, romantically or otherwise.
I keep telling myself that.
Even now, as I fight the urge to run. But everything changed one scorching summer day. I can pinpoint the exact moment it all started to shift. I close my eyes, inhaling sharply. The July sun beats on the car roof, and the AC vents are blowing lukewarm air. My cheeks are flushed more from nerves than from the heat. The nerves are because I'm seconds away from stepping onto that front porch, knocking on the door, and confronting feelings I've tried to deny for weeks. The big question is, will Claire open that door, or am I about to slam it shut on my own happiness by fleeing? A horn blares behind me, and I jolt in my seat. A delivery driver zips past, shouting something incoherent before vanishing around the corner. The sudden interruption breaks my paralysis. With trembling fingers, I twist the key in the ignition, silencing the engine. My heart leaps into my throat. I stare at the faded white house in front of me, Claire's house, and think, one step at a time. Let's rewind a bit, back to where this all began to unravel. It was mid-June, that magical time in New York when the city is alive with sunshine and rooftop gatherings. Olivia invited me over to her family's house in Brooklyn Heights for a lazy Saturday afternoon. I was expecting to lounge around, watch silly reality shows, maybe rant about work. I was definitely not expecting to have my entire worldview flipped on its axis. We were in the living room, sprawled across the sofa, limbs dangling over the edges, watching some forgettable dating show on Netflix. Olivia was flipping through her phone, half paying attention, half gossiping about some mutual friend's recent relationship drama. I was half asleep, letting the day drift away in a haze of mindless entertainment. That's when Claire walked in. She wore these tiny cut-off jean shorts and a simple white tank top. Her blonde hair was tousled, like she'd just rolled out of bed, and there was a lazy grin on her face. She glanced around, realized we were watching TV, and groaned in mock protest. "You guys better have left some ice cream for me," she teased, stepping around the coffee table to plop down on the other end of the couch. Before I could even register her movement, she reached over, snagged the spoon in my hand, and took a bite directly from the pint I'd been sharing with Olivia. Her sudden proximity and that bold little move startled me, but it was her face that truly caught me off guard. I'd seen her many times over the years, but in that moment, the golden light from the windows hitting her hair, the slight flush on her cheeks, the mischievous curve of her smile, something in my head shifted. She looked undeniably beautiful, radiant in that effortless way some people just are. The strangest thing was how my gaze lingered. I was looking at Claire, really seeing her for the first time, as though she were someone entirely different from the kid sister I'd once vaguely known. She savored the ice cream, then poked at me with a spoon. "What's up? Cat got your tongue?" I snapped out of it, cheeks warming. "Sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "You just snuck up on me?" She laughed, shrugged, then continued nibbling on the cold dessert. Meanwhile, my stomach did this weird flutter and my thoughts tumbled over each other. "This is ridiculous, I scolded myself. She's Olivia's little sister. She's 23, for crying out loud.
Get a grip.
But as the afternoon wore on, I caught myself sneaking glances at her out of the corner of my eye. The shape of her lips when she smiled. The way she absent-mindedly toyed with her hair, twisting strands around her fingers. How her tank top shifted, revealing glimpses of tanned shoulders and collarbone. An odd heat coiled in my chest, something I'd never experienced in Claire's presence before. At first, I dismissed it as silly. Maybe I was just bored or lonely, or I'd had too much coffee that morning. I rationalized every excuse. "It doesn't mean anything, Emily. Your brain's being weird. It's just a stray thought." Yet that stray thought grew louder, and every time she walked by, I felt a subtle spark. I was torn between bewilderment and intrigue. This was new, unsettling territory. And deep down, a part of me worried there was no turning back. Things escalated 2 weeks later at a friend's rooftop party in Williamsburg. These gatherings were the highlight of summer. Beer, music, sweaty bodies crammed together, and a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline. Olivia and I had gone together, but at some point, we got separated among the throng of people. I ended up making small talk with acquaintances, sipping from a plastic cup of cheap sangria, and trying to enjoy the festivities. As the night progressed, I slipped away to the balcony for a breather. The party was loud, everyone shouting over the music, someone messing with a half-functional speaker. I wanted a moment of quiet, so I stepped outside, letting the cool night air brush against my skin. The view of the city lights was mesmerizing. I'd always loved how Manhattan looked from across the water at night, a jewel box of sparkling skyscrapers. I took a swig of my drink, stared at the skyline, and exhaled. That's when I sensed someone behind me. I turned around and there she was, Claire. My heart hiccuped in my chest. She was wearing a black tank top, denim shorts, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail with a few loose strands framing her face. She glanced at me with a small smile, her eyes bright in the glow from the city below. "Hey, Emily," she said softly. "Needed some air too?" I nodded. "Yeah, it's hectic in there." She came to lean on the railing beside me. "Thought I'd find you out here. You looked a bit overwhelmed." My pulse quickened. I suddenly realized how close we were standing. The gentle swirl of wind carried her perfume, fresh and a little sweet, mingling with the faint smell of the city. I tried to act normal, but my stomach was a knot of nerves. We chatted for a few minutes about the party, about who we recognized among the crowd, about how music was better last summer. Eventually, the conversation trailed off, and the lull felt charged with an undercurrent of tension. I tried to ignore it, focusing my gaze on the skyline, but I could feel her eyes on me. That flutter in my chest returned full force. "Hey, she said quietly, her voice almost lost in the ambient noise behind us. "You and my sister have been inseparable for years, but I never got to really talk to you one-on-one." I forced a half-smile. "Guess the timing never worked out. You were busy with college and a life." She toyed with the rim of her plastic cup. "Yeah. So, how about your life?" "I don't know much about it, beyond your job and the times you hang out with Liv." I shrugged, feeling oddly shy. "Oh, it's not that interesting. I work at a marketing firm, do graphic design. I feed my cat, Ralph. That's pretty much it." She laughed softly. I bet there's more to you than that. No special someone? Or are you seeing anyone's? Something lodged in my throat. The question shouldn't have rattled me, but it did. I cleared my throat, trying to maintain composure. Not right now. Claire's eyes sparkled. Interesting. She took a step closer, so close I could sense the warmth of her body. My breath caught. You seem nervous, she said gently. I swallowed, the city lights reflecting in her irises. I'm not okay. Maybe I am. She tilted her head, that mischievous grin appearing. Why? Before I could conjure a vague response, she set her cup down on the ledge and took my hand in hers. The simple contact sent a jolt of energy up my arm. My thoughts scrambled. Tell me to back off, she whispered, if I'm wrong about this. I stared at her, heart hammering. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She leaned in, and her lips met mine, gentle at first, testing the waters. My world reeled, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. The hush of the distant city sounds, the muted thump of the party inside, the hazy glow of streetlights, it all receded until nothing existed except the softness of her mouth, the taste of sangria on her breath, and the wild flutter of my heart. Her free hand slid around my waist, pulling me closer. I kissed her back, tentatively, a rush of warmth flooding me. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and so many things I couldn't name. And then, in a burst of panic, I broke away. I mumbled something incoherent, an apology, maybe, and darted past her, stumbling back into the chaos of the apartment. My chest constricted, and I could barely breathe. I didn't even have the courage to look over my shoulder. I left the party, hailing a cab with shaking hands, and spent the entire ride home reeling from what had just happened. For days, I avoided everyone. Claire, Olivia, my co-workers, even my cat, Ralph, who seemed offended by my sudden disinterest in cuddling. I locked myself in my apartment, found excuses to decline hangouts, buried myself in freelance design projects, anything to avoid confronting the swirl of emotions inside me. But, of course, I couldn't hide forever. Eventually, Olivia, being my best friend, noticed my odd behavior. She cornered me one Saturday night at my place. We were supposed to be having a low-key evening of pizza and beer, but I was wound so tight, I barely touched my slice. She narrowed her eyes. You're acting weird. What's going on? I swallowed hard, trying to dodge. Nothing, just work stress. She rolled her eyes. I know what you're like when it's just work stress, and this is not it. You've been avoiding me, and especially avoiding my sister. Care to explain? I froze. A part of me wanted to blurt the entire story, but fear clamped my mouth shut. I'm not avoiding her. I lied, voice unconvincing. Olivia sipped her beer, watching me closely. You forget, I've known you for almost a decade. Emily, come on, level with me. I chewed my lip. Could I really confess? The memory of Claire's kiss still haunted me, stirring my pulse whenever I allowed myself to think about it. Finally, exhaling shakily, I caved. Okay, fine, I murmured. Something happened between Claire and me. Olivia's eyebrows rose. Something like, she kissed me. I spat the words out as quickly as possible, feeling my cheeks flare. At that rooftop party 2 weeks ago, silence stretched. My heart drummed a panicked beat. For a moment, Olivia just blinked at me, stunned. Then, to my surprise, she let out a small laugh. And you're freaking out about it, why? She asked, setting her beer down with a clink. Because you liked it? I stared at her. How? She shrugged. It's obvious you liked it, otherwise you wouldn't be acting like this. Right? I swallowed, nodding slowly. I don't know what it means. She's your sister, Liv. That complicates everything. Why does it have to be complicated? Olivia asked, crossing her arms. Claire's an adult. You're an adult. So, what if she's my kid sister? If you guys vibe, you vibe. The flippancy in her tone floored me. I don't want to ruin our friendship or upset you. And I'm not even sure if Claire was just messing around or if I trailed off, lost in confusion. Olivia studied me for a moment. Then she cracked a small smile. I love you. You're basically family at this point. The only thing that would upset me is if one of you hurt the other. If you're into Claire and she's into you, I'm not gonna stand in your way. But if you keep ignoring her, you'll just push her away. I hadn't expected her acceptance. Relief mingled with lingering fear. I'm just so scared, Liv. Of what? Of messing things up. Of losing you. Of losing Claire. Of losing everything that's safe and familiar. She reached across the coffee table, placed a hand on my arm. Sometimes taking a risk is worth it. Armed with Olivia's surprisingly level-headed perspective, I summoned the courage to stop avoiding Claire. A few days later, Claire texted me, "Can we talk? I miss my ice cream, buddy." The simple message made my heart clench. We arranged to meet at a tiny cafe in Soho, one of those artsy spots with latte foam art and exposed brick walls. I arrived early, nerves jangling like loose change in my pocket. I was halfway through a cup of chamomile tea, trying to soothe myself, when Claire stepped in. She spotted me immediately, and a wry smile crossed her face. She slid into the seat opposite mine, setting her phone aside. Her blonde hair was tucked behind her ears, and she wore a light denim jacket, despite the warm weather. I noticed a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Hey," she said softly. "Hi," I managed, my throat tight. Her eyes flicked to the untouched pastry on my plate. Nervous? I forced a small laugh. "A bit." She nodded, her gaze shifting between me and the cafe window. "Okay, I'll cut to the chase. Why'd you vanish after that kiss? I mean, we've known each other for years, but you've never run from me like that before." I fiddled with the hem of my shirt. "I'm sorry I left you hanging." I panicked. Panicked about what? She looked genuinely perplexed. "I figured you either hated it or something else was going on. And from the way you just said sorry, I'm guessing it wasn't because you hated it." A blush crept up my neck. "I didn't hate it," I admitted, voice low. "I liked it. A lot more than I expected." Claire's shoulders relaxed a fraction, as though a weight had lifted. "So why avoid me?" With a shaky exhale, I spilled the thoughts that had been tormenting me. The fear of what Olivia might think, the fear of shattering my comfortable life, the confusion over this sudden attraction I never anticipated. When I finished, she reached across the little table and took my hand in hers. The warmth of her fingers eased some of my tension. I get it," she said softly. "I know it can be weird that I'm Olivia's sister. But trust me, Liv would be fine with it. She's not the type to meddle if two people genuinely like each other." My lips twisted in a feeble smile. "That's what she said too, actually." Claire arched an eyebrow. "So you did talk to her?"
Yeah.
She gave me the thumbs up, basically. Claire let out a breathy laugh. "Look at that, one hurdle down. Now you just have to decide if you can handle dating me, the younger sister, Ms. 23 years old with questionable life experience." I frowned. "Don't undermine yourself. You're way more mature and confident than I ever was at your age. Probably more than I am at 27, honestly." She squeezed my hand. "Then maybe it's worth a shot. You know, seeing if this thing between us is real." My heart thundered. The coffee grinder behind the counter roared to life, but all I could focus on was Claire's earnest expression. "You think it's worth the risk?" Her smile turned gentle, a softness in her bright eyes. "I do." I glanced around, noting a few other patrons hunched over laptops or reading. My cheeks heated at the thought of a public display of affection, but the longing in me overrode my self-consciousness. Slowly, I leaned forward, and she did too, until our lips met across the table. It was a brief kiss, light, tentative, but it felt like stepping across an invisible threshold. When we pulled apart, she squeezed my hand again, her eyes shining. "We'll figure this out," she said, voice trembling just a bit. "I promise." In the weeks that followed, Claire and I settled into an uncertain but thrilling new normal. I'd meet her at quirky brunch spots in the city, or we'd grab late-night fries after my shift ended. We texted constantly, sharing little details of our days, random memes, and sweet goodnight messages. It was exhilarating, like rediscovering that electricity of a first crush. At the same time, a shadow of fear lingered. I worried about Olivia's reaction if she ever felt left out or caught off guard. Though she'd given me her blessing, I still wasn't sure how she'd feel seeing Claire and me act openly affectionate in front of her. For a while, I tried to keep our physical affection discreet whenever Olivia was around. No hand-holding, no whispered flirtations. But one sunny afternoon, everything changed in a single, surprising moment. Claire and I were strolling through Central Park after a long day. The trees were lush and green, the paths crowded with tourists and street performers. We talked, joked, and eventually found an ice cream cart by the lake. Both of us got cones, mint chocolate chip for me, and strawberry for her. We settled on a secluded bench near the water, the soft hum of conversation surrounding us. We'd been sitting shoulder to shoulder, lost in easy chatter, when Claire leaned in to brush a smudge of ice cream off my lips. The gesture was affectionate and playful, and before I knew it, I was leaning in, capturing her mouth in a kiss. It was gentle, nothing outrageous, but undeniably romantic. I forgot about everything else, my thoughts filled with the warmth of her lips and the sweetness of strawberry clinging to them. Suddenly, a very familiar voice rang out behind us. Hello. We broke apart, startled, and turned to see Olivia standing there, a grin lighting up her face. She wore running shorts and a tank top, likely out for a jog or a stroll. My pulse skyrocketed, and I scrambled to my feet. Olivia, hi. I blurted, heart hammering. Claire, blushing fiercely, stood too. Olivia folded her arms. Well. I had my suspicions about you too, but seeing it in person, she wagged a finger at Claire. Look at you, sister. Claire, recovering from the shock, snorted. Really, Liv? You're not upset or anything. She laughed, shaking her head. Why would I be upset? Did you think I'd go berserk if I saw you guys being cute together? She glanced between us, then her expression grew mock stern. Although, I'll warn you, Emily, if you hurt my sister, I will feed you to the pigeons. Got it? I swallowed hard, but the gentle teasing in her tone reassured me. Got it? She rolled her eyes. You two are ridiculous. You're both adults, and I've seen this coming for a while, honestly. Just be honest with each other, and with me. That's all I ask. Claire and I exchanged relieved smiles. In one swoop, Olivia had witnessed us together, teased us a bit, and made it clear she wasn't angry. If anything, she seemed amused. An enormous weight lifted off my shoulders, replaced by a sort of cautious excitement. The cat was out of the bag, and it didn't seem like the world had ended. Olivia beckoned us to walk with her. We strolled along the lakeside, making small talk about everything from Claire's new internship to my design gig. The tension melted away, replaced by a surprising sense of normalcy. Finally, we parted ways. Claire and I watched Olivia jog off, headphones in place, as though she hadn't just walked in on a game-changing moment. I guess that was the official reveal, Claire murmured, slipping an arm around my waist. I leaned my head on her shoulder, letting out a shaky laugh.
Yeah.
And it wasn't half as terrible as I feared. She pressed a light kiss to the top of my head. See, Em? Sometimes reality is kinder than your imagination. From that moment on, Claire and I navigated our relationship in the open, though we were still mindful of boundaries. Early on, there were plenty of hiccups. My anxiety flared up whenever I thought about what other friends or family might say. Occasionally, Claire questioned whether she was just a passing infatuation for me, given our age difference and the abruptness of our connection. We talked, argued at times, but mostly we communicated and learned more about each other's fears and desires. One early challenge was the difference in our routines. My workday at the graphic design firm often stretched late, especially if we were finalizing a big client project. Meanwhile, Claire was in the midst of finishing a graduate program in social work, juggling classes, and a part-time internship at a nonprofit. Our schedules never quite lined up. We clung to stolen moments, late dinners at a 24-hour diner, Sunday brunch if we got lucky, or quick coffee dates in between her lectures. And yet, all the logistical struggles couldn't overshadow the warmth we felt when we were together. I found myself confiding in her about things I'd never told anyone. My insecurities about my artistic talent, my hidden longing to launch a freelance design studio, my occasional bouts of insomnia triggered by stress. In return, she opened up about her own vulnerabilities, her fear of not making a difference in people's lives, her frustration at being treated like the baby in certain circles, even though she'd proven her maturity countless times. All the while, Olivia remained our unspoken guardian angel. She teased us, made jokes about how she'd ended up introducing her best friend to her sister, and how that would make for an awkward wedding toast someday. But behind the banter, I sensed a genuine protectiveness. Olivia loved us both, and wanted to ensure no one got hurt. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but having her blessing felt like a safety net. As the summer wore on, Claire and I found more ways to integrate our lives. One of my favorite memories was the weekend we all took a short trip upstate to escape the city's heat. We booked a cozy cottage near a lake, spent mornings kayaking and afternoons hiking dusty trails. Evenings were filled with morays roasted over a fire pit. I remember lying next to Claire on a blanket under the stars, our fingers entwined, laughter carrying in the breeze as Olivia cracked jokes. I felt a surge of gratitude and, strangely, contentment, like I was exactly where I belonged. That's the thing that sneaks up on you about love. Sometimes it blooms gently, like a slow sunrise, but sometimes it comes out of nowhere and explodes your carefully ordered life, leaving you reeling in the best possible way. For me, it was both, in different stages, startling at first, then gradually filling my heart with quiet wonder. And so, I found myself in front of Claire's house one late afternoon in early September, back where we started, me gripping the steering wheel, nerves racing.
Why?
Because I had made a decision, a big one, and my next step was to share it with her. See, the past few weeks I'd been offered a new position, one that would require traveling for months at a time. I delayed giving an answer, paralyzed by the thought of leaving Claire behind. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wanted to let her in on my decision, not just vanish. With a final burst of courage, I shut off the car, grabbed my tote bag, and stepped out onto the sidewalk. My heart hammered, but I tried to quell the panic. You love her, Emily. You have to trust that love. I made my way up the short path to the front door. My reflection stared back from the glass panel, wide-eyed, anxious, but determined. I raised my hand to knock. Before my fist even connected with the wood, the door swung open. Claire stood there, barefoot, wearing an oversized hoodie and sweatpants, a look of surprise on her face. Em, I was just about to text you. Everything okay? I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Can I come in? She nodded, stepping aside. The familiar smell of her place, fresh laundry and a hint of vanilla, enveloped me. I slipped off my shoes and followed her into the living room. She motioned for me to sit on the couch, then curled up next to me, concern etching her features. What's up? She asked, her hand finding mine. I cleared my throat, trying to steady the swirl inside my head. So, there's something I need to tell you. I got a job offer. It's a pretty big deal, creative director for a mobile startup. But it means traveling, possibly a lot. Her eyes flickered.
Wow.
That's huge, Em. Congratulations. When did you find out? About 2 weeks ago. I admitted, shame creeping in. I've been agonizing over it, because, well, I don't want to be away from you. I'm scared it'll wreck what we're building. But I also don't want to resent missing out on a career opportunity. She listened, jaw tightening slightly. So, what do you want to do? My lips trembled. I haven't accepted it yet. And part of me is waiting to hear how you feel. Claire closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, there was a calm clarity. You've worked so hard to get where you are. You deserve to explore opportunities that push your limits and let you grow. If that means traveling, then we'll figure it out. I'm not going to stand in your way. A wave of emotion hit me. Are you sure? Her fingers tightened around mine. I'm sure. I'm proud of you. And yeah, it might be rough being apart, but I'd rather see you chase your dreams than hold you back. We'll make it work. Tears pricked my eyes. I leaned in, pressing my forehead against hers. "I love you," I whispered. It was the first time I'd said the words out loud. She startled a bit, then smiled, cheeks flushing. "I love you too, Em." I was waiting for the right moment to say it. Guess this is it. Relief, joy, and a surge of warmth flooded me. In that moment, I knew we'd face whatever came next, distance, challenges, or any outside opinion, and we'd do it together. Because sometimes the biggest leaps in life are made easier by the person who stands beside you, saying, "It's okay, I've got you." We kissed, slow and tender, the living room lamp casting a golden glow around us. A sense of peace settled in my chest, as if all the jumbled pieces of my life had finally clicked into place. The next few months were a whirlwind. I accepted the job, and true to her word, Claire supported me every step of the way. Our relationship continued to blossom despite late-night FaceTime calls from different time zones and scattered weekends when I'd fly back just to surprise her. Olivia cheered us on, teasing me endlessly about being a jet-setter, but also acknowledging that my situation with Claire was something special. By winter, I'd settled into a routine that included traveling for 3-week stints, then returning home for a week or two. Each time I came back, Claire and I found a new rhythm. We'd go out to our favorite diner, watch movies huddled together on the couch, and talk about everything under the sun. There were tough moments, loneliness, frustration, even jealousy sometimes. But we learned to communicate, really communicate, and it made us stronger. When I think back to that first spark of attraction, Claire in her cutoff shorts, stealing my spoon to sample ice cream, it feels like another lifetime, yet also like yesterday. I remember how shocking that spark was, how impossible I thought the whole scenario would be. And now, I can't imagine my life without her. She's my muse, my confidant, my anchor. Sure, we have a million details to figure out about the future. Where we'll live if I keep traveling long-term, how she'll balance her own career ambitions with mine. But we're in it together, both believing it's worth the risk. If you'd asked me at 27 if I'd ever fall in love with Olivia's kid sister, I would have laughed. But love has a way of finding you in the strangest places, like a familiar living room on a lazy afternoon, or a rooftop at midnight with the city sparkling below. Love doesn't follow logic or convenience. It leaps into your life unannounced, leaving you breathless and brimming with possibility. Today, Claire and I stroll through Central Park, hand in hand, sipping hot chocolate to fend off the chill. The winter sun filters through bare tree branches, and she jokes about how I used to give her noogies when we first met. I did not, for the record. She's exaggerating. I laugh, pulling her closer. We pause on a small bridge overlooking the icy pond. "You know," she says softly, "sometimes I look at you and can't believe this is real." I grin, brushing a stray lock of hair from her cheek.
Same.
But I'm grateful it is. We stand there, arms around each other, watching the world pass by below us. In that quiet moment, it strikes me again how life can change so suddenly, how the door to the greatest happiness might be right in front of you, if only you have the courage to open it. I never thought I would end up falling in love with my best friend's sister. But as I've learned, the best things in life often happen when you least expect them. And in the end, I wouldn't trade it for anything.